So good morning or good afternoon or evening, depending a bit on where you are located. Thanks a lot for being here for this final session of today's summit. This session is about environmental monitoring, and I will be joined by four panelists today: Professor Matthew Dunbabin, Dr. Peter Washam, Professor Jorge Diaz, and Professor Cecilia Laschi. Are the panelists all here? Let me see. Yes, I see them here. Okay, so then let me start the session. So my name is Stefano Mintchev. I'm professor of environmental robotics at ETH Zürich. And this session is about robots that enable us to survey and monitor and collect data and samples to potentially develop data-driven solution to the problem of sustainability, climate change, and also biodiversity loss. And I will start by introducing the speaker, and then each speaker will introduce a bit his or her work, and then I have some questions that I've prepared. Of course, very important for all the audience. You also have the opportunity to ask questions. So please, there is a Q&A button. So please post there your questions, and then I will ask them to the speakers. So maybe we can start with an introduction of the panelists. I see here the first that appears on top of the screen is Matthew. So please, Matthew, go ahead.
Hi, and thank you for the invitation to participate. So my name is Matthew Dunbabin. I'm a professor at the Queensland University of Technology and also a principal technologist in the BioPixel Oceans Foundation, which is a not-for-profit, but doing research initiatives to translate research into conservation outcomes. I lead a robotics lab, a marine robotics lab at QUT, and our focus is on basically, like everyone, a lot of AI, but in particular, we look at doing robotic systems or autonomous systems to do active real-time intervention in the environment to help with a range of different tasks, whether they be coral reef reseeding, marine pest eradication, through to other aspects around habitat loss, sort of mitigating habitat loss, regeneration, and even generation of new habitats.
Thank you, Matthew, for the introduction. It's great to have you here and to know more about your work in the coming minutes. Peter, you're next.
Hi there. My name is Peter Washam. I'm a senior research associate at Cornell University, and I work along with the team that has an underwater robot named Icefin. It has a specific name. It's all custom built in the house. The instrumentation's off the shelf, but it's designed to work under ice in polar regions. So it has a very specific aspect ratio. And our group basically deploys this thing into the ocean and then studies how the ocean is melting the glaciers and the ice shelves in Greenland and Antarctica. So I'm freshly back from Greenland. I was there in April. It's much warmer back home in Atlanta, Georgia than it was up there.
Okay. Thank you very much, Peter, for the introduction and also for joining this panel. And next is Cecilia.
Thanks, Stefano.
Hi, Cecilia.
Thanks for inviting me to this panel. So, Cecilia Laschi, I am a professor at the National University of Singapore, but I'm also professor on leave from the Robotics Institute of Scuola Superiore Sant'Anna in Italy. So my research is mostly in soft robotics. And I actually started with research by studying a very special animal, which is the octopus. My research is on fundamental problems in soft robotics and soft robotics technologies, but there are several applications already available for soft robots. And you see, I started from the octopus, so for me, it's pretty natural to explore some applications of soft robots back in the ocean. And actually, I had some opportunities to be a little bit in the field of environmental monitoring already years ago with a European project where our team built a surface robot, actually not underwater, but it was purposely designed to take samples of water and then automatically search for pollutants in these samples of water. And more recently, thanks to the octopus, thanks to what we learned from the octopus about, living on the sea bottom in the Baltic area, we developed more prototypes, and specifically one of them has been the first robot that could walk on the sea bottom. And the purpose was again to monitor, in that case, the samples were samples of sediments. So this is mostly the work of Marcello Callisti when we were in the same group. He has been an active participant in this summit, so I'm happy to cite him. And so this is the most recent experience in my research for environmental monitoring.
Thank you, Cecilia, for explaining what you're doing, and of course also for joining the panel. And finally, I have Jorge.
Hello.
You introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you for inviting me. It's very interesting that we have this initiative around climate and robots. I just finished a project called Robotics. That is something that is related with the use of robots and to study ecologies and to study systems that are biological, and you need to use robots to learn about them. And actually, my area is since long on robotics side. When it comes to respect to the environment, I think I would say that is like acquisition of data that is trying to giving the digital twin of these systems, and mainly concentrated now on underwater. It's very important to have this kind of data because everybody needs to study these environmental systems, and they need very accurate data, or that more persistent data. Presently, I'm concentrated on robotics part, where devices that you can explore computing on the edge, where you just not pick up signals, but you just processing them in layers, where you can, let's say, have an interpretation what you see it, for making this kind of layers that are mapping the environment in a more, let's say, compact way, to allow the people to do studies between intermodalities. That is something that is quite important for studying implications of different systems, fishes, or the quality of the water, and compare it, both of the things. So this more or less what I'm doing currently on Khalifa University. That is the last place that I'm now since some years.
Thank you, Jorge, for the introduction, and also for joining the panel. It's great to have you all here. Okay, so I have already kind of some questions from the audience, and since it's overlapping with one of my question, maybe I will start with these, and then we can of course move on to others as well. I think this is an interesting question from Yogesh that is asking, how can we ensure that the robots and drone used for environmental monitoring are themselves sustainable and eco-friendly over a long time? Of course, we use our drones or our robots to collect data, and maybe we deploy a lot of them in the environment. And the question is, how can we be sure that they are not harmful, or maybe they don't perturbate too much the environment that we want to survey? Matthew, would you like to start? Have you encountered any of these problems since you work close to fishes and coral reefs?
Yeah, so no, it's a great question. So we actually take this very seriously in our lab, and we actually have primarily focused on a set of technologies, or what we call tools, that are reconfigurable. So they have a life just beyond a single task. So we take a lot of time just on the base platform. That way we are not building a single robot that has a single purpose. It can be reconfigured, it can be done a lot more different tasks, and that way you can extend the longevity. You still will get obsolescence over time, and unfortunately that's just as we get more and more. But the whole idea is, if they're built robust enough, and we just heard from the previous one, the e-waste problem that we have, sort of thinking ahead about some of the issues and the algorithms that we can start to develop that can be even ported to older technology to keep it going. I think still there's a big issue with batteries. These still don't last as long as what we'd hope, but I think we're getting better. Solar is obviously good. I work with a lot of surface vehicles and underwater vehicles. Underwater, you can't get that solar energy easily, but surface vehicles, and we're seeing a lot more around the world. Some companies out of Canada and other countries where they are developing solar and sail to really extend the lifetime of these platforms. And then if we, there is unfortunately a waste. If we can make them energy efficient, we can get a long time. We look at the Argo program where they've got the currently I think it's about 4,000 drones in the water, so to speak. But if we can extend the life of those to 5 to 10 years, then I think the reward is, in terms of climate modeling and stuff like that, will sort of, we still will generate a bit of waste, but we get a lot more information over a very long bit of time through good design and good algorithms.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. What is the lifetime of one of these robots today? You mentioned about this Argo, but it's already 5, 10 years, or it's less?
Depends on the algorithms they use and the sensors they have. So I don't work with that program, but I believe it can be anywhere from 2 to 5 years or more. So it depends on the amount of sensors and the amount of cycles that they do around the world. So there is 4,000. They keep replacing them and stuff like that. And it is a better technology than what we used to use. We used to throw what we called XPDs literally over the side of a boat every quarter of a degree of latitude or longitude, right? You just throw something over the boat with a kilometre of wire on it and just let it break off. So we're creating a lot of waste on the bottom for many years, and now we can get this technology. At least we get many thousands of data points more than what we would have got just from older technology.
Okay, thank you. Peter, do you have any perspective on these aspects of minimal invasiveness or perturbation of the environment with robots? What is your experience?
Yeah, I have a few ideas. The Argos are great, and if you recover them, right, then you can actually use them again, right? You put new batteries in them, you retrofit them, you put them back out. But for us, we have to fly or take a ship to wherever we go, which is typically consuming diesel fuel, which is not great for the environment, right? So one of the ways we combat this is we've designed our robot to be small and to be modular. So what we do is we break up the robot into like 8 or 10 Pelican cases, and we check them onto the flight with us. Now, our robot does the same sort of work as a large-scale AUV. It doesn't go as far, but it collects the same sort of measurements as an underwater autonomous vehicle, which has to be shipped in a storage container. So like this, the amount of just greenhouse gas emissions to get that thing where it's supposed to go versus to get our robot where it's supposed to go is much higher. So one of the ways we sort of combat all of this is just by making it very efficient to be moved from one place to another, because inherent to what we do is going to these places that are far away that require a good bit of resources to get to.
So the logistic and the modularity of the system is an important aspect to minimize impact overall.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Cecilia, what is your perspective on this? You worked a lot also on bio-inspired robots that interact with animals. So how do the animal react when they see these robots?
Yeah, actually, this is a great question, because we want to go and monitor the oceans against pollutants, against everything that is bad for the oceans, and then we put their robots that maybe are not so nice to the environment. So this is a great question. This is actually our main purpose. In terms of as you were mentioning, Stefano, I mean, bringing perturbation or disturbances to the ecosystem, the Bentic robot that I mentioned before, that can walk on the seafloor, actually doesn't use any thruster. So it's very, very very well accepted by the animals, so the fish can swim around it, because it also doesn't move the sediments, so that's why it could be used for taking samples. So, but at the same time, when we started with the mission in the ocean, we were a bit worried. We said, okay, we are going and check and try to fight against pollution and whatever, but what about our robots? Are we sure that we are not releasing any substance? So this was the first priority. And after that experience, what I'm trying to do now is to build robots that are also biodegradable, because, you know, we can also, our robots can also get lost, and I mean, it's also pretty likely. So if we want this field to progress more, and if we think that robots will be used more and more in the oceans, we should also guarantee they don't become an additional waste in the ocean. So that's why I started a collaboration with a material scientist to really change completely the materials that we are using and make them not only compatible but also degradable completely, so that we are okay if our robots get lost.
Okay, yeah, so it's about like the bio-inspired design that can sort of minimize impact on other creatures, but also about the materials, the integration of new materials that eventually degrade.
In the end, in nature, it's a very simple concept and well-established concept, having a cycle of life. This is true not only for marine robots, it should be true for any robots. So, and any products, if you want, there should be a moment when it is produced, and then a life cycle, and then the end of life cycle, natural living organisms, they just reintegrate back in the environment. And we should ensure the same for robots.
And for environmental robots, since we have a lot of them, or we have to deploy a lot of them, that could be an important. This is definitely an important aspect. Thank you. Jorge, do you have any perspective from in terms of invasiveness of our robots in the environment? How can we minimize it?
I think yes, I can just say that we cannot just explore the technologies that we have now. We definitely need to go, as Cecilia said, to something that is less invasive and no more pollution. That's an important thing. Actually, because what we do is like some explorations on the nature right now with the robots, and we return back but you need to do also persistent evaluation, and this is impose some kind of mechanism to be the robots not evasive enough in a certain way that don't make intrusion on the communities of animals or biodiversity that we have, and also be persistent in the same time and not create pollution for later when they become, exhausted by that doing. I think there are these aspects that the technology need to involve. So we are a little in the first steps, and people from materials like Cecilia is working is quite important, but is also important another aspect that maybe we should look for here, because typically the robotics, what we have been doing until now is they move, and when they move in certain forms in the land, for example. When it comes to land that is very uneven, you need to be very special. And when you do it in the nature, is very wild situations where the media change a lot. So the metamorphic mechanisms that we need to have really push for some kind of solutions that biorobotics are already explored in the past, and we need to revisiting these ones for these kind of effects that we have. We have media that changes. It changes sometimes with abrupt situations, sometimes also from land to something that is neither land, neither water, is a mix that is very difficult to progress. And these kind of situations are not some of the robots that we have neither deal with this. We have thrusters, we have mechanisms of locomotion that is classical, and we need to come back to another ways of locomotion that is totally different. And just what Cecilia mentioned is just one case, just different ways of locomotion that we see about, okay? So definitely we have a new, let's say, a stage for developing new technologies on robotics.
Yeah, in terms of especially like this multimodal mobility, so that we can extend the capacity of robots to survey in different environments. This could be an example. Thank you. I have a question, an additional question. One of the things that I found very challenging in environmental monitoring is the scale. When we think about ocean, or I work also in forest, for example, but it's really extremely large area that we need to survey, and we're talking about large three-dimensional spaces. So I would be curious to hear from you your experience in terms of large-scale monitoring of this environment. What do you think are the scientific, technical, or also the logistical bottleneck that we that are still present? Matthew, would you like to start again?
Yeah. So no, great question. So scale is a big problem, and probably people that do more blue water stuff is a big problem. I tend to work coastal, but we're still on the scales of tens of or hundreds of kilometers of area, and we are developing these robotic tools that community groups use. So in terms of the challenges, like we can actually make them quite robust and go out and do the monitoring task or the reseeding task, whatever, quite robustly. Some of the big challenges we have, and this becomes down to a policy challenge, policy issue, is around letting these vehicles operate unsupervised. So in marine, we have collision regulations, we have all these other things. There's there's a lot of trust issues, particularly I think around the technology. Particularly if we go in there with a research prototype, people see that and they don't expect it. We know that it's probably going to require some iterations to get it to work. Whereas a lot of groups out there, community groups, they see one and they actually want to see this work. Probably like you see a commercial drone, like a small drone or whatever now, just work out of the box. And that just doesn't quite happen in our field just yet. But it is changing. So I think it's just getting that, and that this leads to the scale, right? So if you, as roboticists, there's not enough robotics in the world to run enough vehicles, to cover that large scale. So we actually need to bring in industry, we need to bring in community groups to operate this technology, and then, how do we provide the interfaces, the technical know-how? Do you actually need technical know-how to operate them? Can you get a level of trusted autonomy that other people, you can operate in a mixed fleet scenario where, you have either local fishers or even commercial vessels in the area, and still operate safely. So they're the big challenges that we're actively working on as well. And we're working with our Australian Safety Authority to actually try and mitigate. So one of the ways that we do this is we actually make inflatable vehicles so that they have low kinetic energy, low impact, but they can survive quite significant environmental conditions and still perform their tasks. So they become less of a risk, so to speak. So we're trying to work out how we can use engineering as well as autonomy to overcome some of these big large-scale challenges.
Yeah, and it was also very interesting aspects of engagement with local communities and all these aspects, so to facilitate the scaling now of the deployment of this platform, and also probably involve the local communities that are directly affected by the environmental issue. So thanks, Matthew. Peter, do you have any addition to this topic of scalability of the measures and the challenges that comes from this?
Yeah, like Matt, I study the coastal area. I don't do blue water. And also I'm primarily a physical oceanographer. I am not a roboticist. I work with a talented group of engineers who know all about the robot. For me, it's a tool. And for us, working in the polar regions that are covered in ice, I mean, to get into the water, you're drilling through ice. So if it's sea ice, you're mechanically drilling through a meter or two. If it's an ice shelf, you're drilling through hundreds of meters to a kilometer just to get to the ocean, right?
Wow.
So like the point that you're getting a measurement at all is that's a good start, right? But for us, the real novelty of what we have is we get spatial information and we have cameras on our robot, which tells you all about the small scale stuff that's happening in the sort of 5 kilometer by 5 kilometer box that you collect those data. So then to get spatial range, you need modelers. So what we can do is collect the in situ observations that show the model if it's wrong or right. But then you really need a trust to get any sort of spatial information beyond that box. You need to collect a few measurements in a few different locations and then tune your model as best as possible. And for us, tackling the sea level rise question, like it's actually quite valuable to get sort of one site underneath an ice shelf that might be 500 kilometers by 200 kilometers, right? Like that's the problem we're dealing with, right? Like we have so little data in Antarctica, and we're doing better in Greenland, but still not great. So it's a hard problem.
So yeah, and that's an interesting perspective. So the use of robots to collect in situ data and then to validate models that then can extrapolate over larger area. Thanks, Peter. Cecilia, any idea on or challenges in scalability that you have experienced in your project?
Yeah, it's more like a concept because that's something that I'm working on now. But I think the scaling up could go through the number of robots. So if we can produce low-cost robots, biodegradable, very compatible with the environment, so we can produce them in a large number. and deploy them in a large number and cover larger areas for monitoring. But of course, I think that a very key point is the autonomy of those robots in a very broad sense. So it's not only the autonomous behavior, but it's also their capability of surviving in the environment. So again, we can take a lot of lessons from nature. Energy, we know, is a very big point, very big issue in marine robots. And again, nature can teach us a lot about energy, because in nature, in natural living organisms, energy is very important, the management of energy, because it makes the difference between surviving or not. So the animals that we observe, they are the ones who survived, and they have a very smart mechanism for not wasting energy. And there is a lot that we learned from the octopus, for example, that we also implemented already in the walking robots, because you can obtain movements that exploit the environment, the interaction with the environment, instead of fighting it. And in that way, you save a lot of energy. Locomotion especially is based on many mechanisms for self-stabilization. So there is a lot of motor behavior movements that emerges from the interaction with the environment, depending on how you build your robot, how to design it. And this is something that can really help a lot in increasing the autonomy of the robots.
Okay, thanks. That's very good insights in terms of how can we design robots for better autonomy, energetic as well, so that we can have a larger scale operation. Jorge, do you have any aspects that you want to share concerning this scalability, or have you had any problem with scaling your solution?
I think scalability is really a hard problem, and part of being a problem that the individual conception of some robots can mitigate this problem of scalability. And we need to do it in a persistent way. We understand that with capacity to repeat the observations, because we are looking for dynamic systems. And this is definitely something they need to deal. I think we need to come to the physics of the systems. We're trying to do this that way. And autonomy, because we are mainly relying now on the electronics, I think, as we discuss it here, you need to look for another ways of reuse the energy that is in the environment. Okay, so some situations, we have some solutions already, but some of the solutions can be, using the energy that is in the environment itself. You can put things doing a persistent flying because they have a constant wind, for example, or in the underwater when they have some currents or tides. So we need to return back to another ways of design physically and with some kind of clever way of doing the mechanics or the support for the locomotion to make it this scalability correct and persistent along the time. So I think we need to really invest more than just using better computers, collecting a lot of data. Many of the intelligence that we have right now should be transformed in a very clever way of designing these robots. Okay, so I think the investment is on that aspect, and I think some of us, we agree more or less on that, and we are progressing that sense somehow.
Yeah, so it's really designing for scalability in mind of the robots, like an holistic rethinking of the platform. Yeah, in persistence. So the body, the brain. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So we have actually some specific question there to the panelists. If you want, you can answer directly in the chat. We still have, I think, 5 minutes. maybe one last question that I have to close a bit this session is kind of on a hot take. If you have one hot take, so basically contrarian or also some provocative point of view about your work or your use of robots in the environmental domain. Jorge, do you want to start this time?
Yes, myself?
Yeah, we.
Yes,
Mhm.
actually, you touch one important point here. I think when we talk about using robots, we are looking always observations. But in fact, the observations sometimes imply physical interaction. And this is really another extra aspect that some people work on this, but we need to do it. And this can have different levels and also different ecosystems. If you do it in levels of small animals, we probably would do it with cameras and capturing, with sampling water and, these biological systems are really silly that we can retrieve it very well. But another one's maybe needs to sample directly with a soft way using, new techniques that are more soft with soft materials. So I think this aspect of intervention is the second phase of a good locomotion. Some animals do it very well since long time ago. I think in coming back to the idea of the using the biology and also the biomimetic way is really very inspirational, and we need to come back to that. And there are some ways of going, but still need to do it, okay? And this is really something that we need to open more experiments, more interesting, let's say, ways of doing the robots that we have nowadays.
Yeah, thank you, Jorge. Cecilia, any last idea or hot take or
technically what I'm trying to do now is to remove electronics completely from my robots. I think this is an interesting way to go towards more sustainable biodegradable robots, but I cannot reveal because I just have some few preliminary and published results on this. And another strong point that I want to make, but I already mentioned it, but I really believe that at this point, we really cannot allow that the progress of technologies keeps going the direction it has gone so far. So this is true for robotics in general, because it's a sector that is booming now, it seems, and it is even more true for marine robotics, of course. We cannot allow that, if it is true that the market is growing fast as it is foreseen, that those robots will become e-waste very soon, as it happened with the smartphones or with the personal computer. So we have mountains of those old devices somewhere in some remote countries. And we really cannot allow that it happens with robots as well. And we are still on time. It's a bit late maybe, but we are still on time for trying to steer the technological progress towards a different direction. We really should take care now of what happens to our robots, especially, again, the marine robots at the end of their life.
Yeah, the sustainability and life cycle of the machines. Thank you. Peter, one provocative point from you to close the session.
I think my point is bigger is not always better. This is what we've learned. Spatially speaking, size of vehicle, endurance of vehicle. For us, for what we do, having humans there to create the scientific plan, the experimental design, and having them there to fix things when they're broken, everything breaks, right? It helps a lot. And so if you can be very targeted in your approach and collect data in a critical region, then you actually don't need to sort of use a robot to collect data under a whole ice shelf or something like that. Instead, you can use modeling or remote sensing, or if there's a ship that's doing a survey, you can depend on them to do that work. So for us, it's really about doing the good work where it's hard to be done and having people there to fix things when they're broken. When our fiber optic cable turns into a gigantic knot under an ice shelf, the robot's not going to be
Need
able
some
to.
intervention.
Someone's going to have to pull that up and untangle it so the robot doesn't get lost. So
yeah. Okay, so still a lot of human in the loop and
at some
platform.
at some point get rid of us, right? But for now, for the next 10 years,
yeah.
You need people, I think.
Thank you, Peter. Matthew, one last provocative point from you, from your experience.
Yeah. So I suppose this is a direction that we're taking in our lab, but also I'm seeing it around. I think we need to really start considering robotic systems beyond just monitoring platforms. Like, I know people are starting to look at them to do active intervention. It was mentioned just earlier. I think we've got too many pressing problems where you can do intervention now if it's appropriate. The other provocative point is robots won't solve everything, and it's still better to have humans in certain areas. And we just need to recognize that and not try and change that, because you waste time and effort. But I think that we really need to start working on, if we are going to do monitoring, can we actually fix something at the same time? Let's think multi-aspect or multiple utility of a platform or some task, because where I work, I do habitat restoration, that type of thing. If you're running a robot to do a monitoring task and going back a week later to possibly do a management task or something like that, is that a best, you're doubling up on the energy, doubling up on the effort, time, people. I think there needs to be a bit of a change to really consider platforms that can do intervention in the wild to support if it's needed, and help do that, because I think we're running out of time in certain aspects in certain places, and you never get to go there. Like, I'm sure Patrick's saying, you only get an opportunity to go to a single place maybe once in 5 years, for example, in these really remote areas, and you need to do as much as you can. So let's work on those type of problems.
Yeah, I fully agree, and I like this idea of environmental monitoring robots that are also doing something good. So it's kind of a bit of a call for action, and I think it's great. And yeah, we are a bit over time, so I would like to thank very much all the panelists. It's been great to have you here. Really like the interaction and the question. There are still a couple of open questions in the chat. I don't know if you want to answer them. And yeah, thanks a lot. So let's make a big round of applause to our panelists. And now I leave the floor to Burke, I think, to conclude the session today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, this was extremely inspiring to see that, like, researchers do not only need to design robots that work on extreme environments, but also really need to think about scalability and sustainability. It's really, really inspiring. So, as you know, this is an international event, and sometimes, like, the meeting times do not work for everyone. Definitely, for example, Matthew Dunbabin joined us from Australia, from Queensland University of Technology, or Cecilia Laschi joined us from National University of Singapore. These times were definitely not convenient for them, but thank you so much for joining. Also, thank you so much for joining to watch all these sessions all around. So I would like to also say that Peter Washam and Matthew Dunbabin will also be in the conference of International Conference on Robotics and Automation, ICRA, giving a workshop talk on May 19th. So if you are joining to that conference, you can take a look to the Robotics for Environmental and Climate Assessment workshop, React workshop, if you want to learn more about their amazing work. So thank you very much for joining us, and hope to see you tomorrow for the last day of the summit. Thank you.